top 10 best number 1 overall NFL pick of all time. Number 10, Eli Manning. Eli Manning was drafted first overall in the 2004 draft by the San Diego Chargers, then traded to the New York Giants for Phillip Rivers. Technically, both of them won the trade. I mean, honestly, they both got Hall of Fame quarterbacks. For Eli Manning, the only thing that Phillip has not done has been winning Super Bowls, or even getting there, which Eli has done twice. But either or, it was a win-win for both of them. But Eli Manning, yes, of course, he deserves to be on this list because of what he's done to the New York Football Giants. You're looking at when he entered, they were a team that had won, 2 Super Bowls prior, but he added 2 more without having to really, in a way, it took some time, but he took him to the playoffs. He took him to some good places, and he brought football, really playoff football, exciting, and the city of New York just back on his feet with football. Honestly, he brought the New York Giants to glory once again with the help of friends, which I call Michael Strahan and Lucky Plays, David Tyree, having Victor Cruz, But overall, he should be there because when it came to crunch, when it came to that, he may have had turnovers. Yes, he may have had pretty bad performances. But boy, when it came to playoff time, when it came to clutch moments, Eli got clutch. Fantastic, fantastic QB. Looking at really the most important statistics you want to look at, you're looking at a quarterback that has started in 199 games, that's won 108 games, all of them with the Giants. He's almost at 50,000 passing yards. He's over 300 touchdowns, He's led them with 30 fourth-quarter comebacks and 39 game-winning drives in the playoffs. He's 8-4. He's been able to lead them to 2 Super Bowls. He's had 4 fourth-quarter comebacks and 5 game-winning drives. In the playoffs, the 2 of him getting a ring. Pretty much, you need him at a moment's notice. He'll be there. He's a multiple Pro Bowler. He's been the Super Bowl MVP twice. He's been the Walter Payton Man of the Year, pretty much award winner. And honestly, yes, he may have some pretty bad games. But overall, Super Bowl-wise, he's 2-0. So, it's got to credit him for something. Number 9, Too Tall Jones. Too Tall Jones, one of the most dominant defensive players from the 70s era. Him and Joe Green definitely stand out as the top guys really in this, pretty much this D-line position. Fantastic guy, a 3-time Pro Bowler. 1 time he was an All-Pro, and he won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl in '77 with the Dallas Cowboys. All of them were with the Dallas Cowboys. The fact that he had 12 sacks in the postseason, and at the same time, from 1982, that's the only time it really got recorded, you're looking at 57.5 sacks from 82 to 89. He probably had 50 more sacks on the other end, so he might have had around 100 sacks total. So you're looking at really a guy that, fantastic football player. Too Tall Jones, of course, it's not his name. His real name is Edward Lee Jones, but he was tall. He was very tall for a D-end, and he played big. And he made the all-1980s team. He's been a Pro Bowler, you already said that, but just looking at what he had, fantastic player. And honestly, I mean, Dallas picked right. They needed to pick a really great line. They needed to pick someone very effective that could definitely affect their team. Too Tall Jones definitely affected this Cowboys in a number of ways. And also the opponents. Imagine the opponents being like, if only we could have gotten that guy. But, Too Tall Jones was able to get drafted number 1 overall in 1974. And I don't think Dallas regrets it one bit. Number 8, Earl Campbell. How can you not put this guy on the list? A number 1 overall pick in 1978 for the Houston Oilers. He played only about 9 seasons, and this guy managed to make a really big splash on this Houston Oilers franchise. Is he considered one of the best running backs? I would say he had a great run. He's definitely not one of the best running backs. He'd definitely be my top 15, not top 10. But man, this guy should be credited as one of the best backs to ever play this game. Best stretch for sure. He had a great stretch of just years before he just started slowing down a bit. But you're looking at this guy and how he changed football forever. He definitely made Houston pretty likable, pretty enjoyable to watch. You know, he's a Hall of Famer for goodness sake. I mean, you got to put this guy on the list. The fact that he's a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, and even winning the MVP. I mean, you got to put this guy up here. I mean, looking at what he had overall, the most important you look at is he had almost 9,500 rushing yards. He had about 74 rushing touchdowns, and you know, he was able to really be a pretty productive back. You know, really productive back. In the playoffs, you could say that he didn't really show that much, but at the same time, you're playing against rough defenses at the time. So, I mean, you know, you can't really exactly blame the guy. Overall, like I said, being the Pro Bowl 5 times, being a 3-time All-Pro, you know, being the MVP, being the Offensive Rookie of the Year, being Offensive Player of the Year, you know, he was a big back in terms of impact for the Houston Oilers, and you know, he really brought some good football into this town. And for the years that he played, I mean, he had some years where he almost had 2,000. He almost had a 2,000 rush yard season. So you see his impact in the game he had. So got to put him on this list. For his short career, he made a big impact. Number 7, Roy Selmon. Roy Selmon is one of the most dominant defensive ends pretty much in the history of the game. Of course, his stats are definitely not recorded as you would want. The earliest sack recording you had of him was 82, so we're not really going to get much sacks from him right now. He's got a total of 23 sacks compared to it, but he probably had around like 80 to 90 sacks in his entire career. And looking at it, he only played 8 years in the league. Really, to me, super surprising. I feel like he definitely would have had a better career. I mean, you're looking at he had 4 total sacks in the 3 playoff games that they played. Tampa was a terrible team. I'm telling you right now, they were a terrible team. But if you want to look at the biggest bright spot of this team, of this really bad Tampa team in this days, it was Roy Selmon. Drafting him first overall in the 1976 draft was the best thing that they could have done. They brought something to Tampa which they didn't have. They didn't have any talented player that can really bring them some joy. It was really a lot of sadness, a lot of losing. Roy Selmon kind of brought something to the defensive side, and they got to the playoffs. They did. They just weren't talented enough to get to a Super Bowl, and that's, you know, it's very sad to say, but it's the truth. Roy Selmon, though, brought a very big, just very talented aspect to the game, and I truly enjoy really watching his film and watching his game, and you know, being a 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, and of course being inducted to the Hall of Fame. It tells you something how impactful he is. You know, winning Defensive Player of the Year. And being in the Pro Bowl, like I said. So overall, yeah, you got to put Roy Selmon in this list. Number 6, O.J. Simpson. Before the Juice was very famous for being in jail, for pretty much murdering his wife. Everyone else who did it, it's him. So I'm not really gonna, you know, obviously he's not in jail for murdering his wife. He's in jail for robbery, and I believe it's robbery. It's kidnapping as well or something. He's gonna be released very, very soon. Actually, that's super surprising. Good for him, I guess. I don't know. All I know is that I know he killed his wife. People might not think so, some people, but I do. I think he definitely killed his wife. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He was a violent guy and pretty terrible person overall. But as a football player, he was pretty badass. He was pretty great. And he's well deserving of being on this list. You're looking at a first overall in the '69 draft, coming out of USC. You know, being this guy that's like everyone's like looking at, like this just idol. He became a bigger idol in Buffalo. Being a 6-time Pro Bowler, being a 5-time All-Pro, being named the MVP, and of course eventually being in the Hall of Fame in '85. I mean, looking at what he did overall as a Buffalo Bill and 2 years in the 49ers, but mostly you'll look at his Bills days, and he racked up over 11,000 rushing yards, you know. He racked up over 50-plus rushing touchdowns. He got the ball. He had like over 200 receptions, you know. He had over 2,000 receiving yards. Like, this guy actually, he played his butt off. And for the one playoff game that he was a part of, I mean, you're looking at 15 rushes for 49 yards. He was stuffed a lot, you know. But overall, he was a fantastic specimen to see. A great football player for the area, which Buffalo would be rewarded later on with really good teams. And you're looking, like I said, 5-time first-team All-Pro is fantastic. Being the MVP, being the offensive player of the year, being named to the all 1970s team. I mean, there's not much you can say, but that he had just everything in the bag. He was, like I said, he was the juice. He was the guy. He was the man out there in Buffalo. Everyone loved him, you know. As soon as he retired, you know, that's a different story. But as a football player, fantastic football player, for sure. Very gifted running back, and one of the best running backs in the game of football. Number 5, Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman was a first overall pick in 1989. Jerry Jones, they needed a new start, and it was great. They got Troy Aikman, a guy that honestly they wanted to start fresh, they wanted to start new, and they had to start with the QB, of course. And it's Troy Aikman. And honestly, what he was able to do, you know, being a Cowboy all his life, playing for about 11 years or so, all he did was just win. He really did. He brought a lot of things to the table from this Dallas Cowboys. And in my belief, he's one of those triplets that gets really overlooked because everyone's going to look at Emmitt Smith. Everyone's going to look at Michael Irvin, but people don't really give credit to Troy Aikman. I understand the line was fantastic. I understand their defense was great. I understand Emmitt helped a lot with the rushing. But who was passing it to Michael Irvin? Who was passing it to what's his name? Jay Novacek, I believe that's his name. Who was passing it to, like, those guys? What was the passing game from? It was from Troy Aikman. He came in there, and he never lost a starting job. He just became that guy. You know, he became the man. 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer. Like, what more do you want? He was Troy Aikman. He was the guy that brought Dallas football to just a standstill. They loved Troy Aikman. They loved the Cowboys. The Cowboys were team of the 90s. They really were. They literally were a dynamite, just powerhouse of a team. You know, I mean, he had multiple years where, you know what, his numbers in today's day wouldn't be like top in there, but I mean, he was able to get it done. He was able to, when you had to need that leader, he was a great leader. And you know what, people don't think about it, but he had 21 game-winning drives and 16 fourth-quarter comebacks in his career. That's not bad at all. That's really not bad. And, you know, over 30,000 passing yards. Again, not bad at all. And 94 wins as a QB for the Dallas Cowboys. Winning 3 rings, of course. I think that's very good. And on top of that, you know, like I said, he winning Super Bowl MVP, being an all-rookie team, being in the Pro Bowl before, you know, winning Players of the Week, if that even matters to any of you guys. But overall, he was the triplets. Without Troy Aikman, you won't see Dallas winning 3 Super Bowls, in my opinion. I think take away any of those 3 guys, they wouldn't have been that successful. Number 4, John Elway. John Elway, one of those guys that honestly I love rooting for because of how many losses this guy really went through Super Bowl-wise. He's been to Super Bowls, and he's lost in Super Bowls, you know, for the most part getting blown out to 49er teams, you know, to really just having some bad luck. But you're looking at what he did overall as a football player was fantastic. I loved watching this guy. This guy was fantastic, in my honest opinion. John Elway, you know, first overall, 83, being drafted by the Colts, getting traded to the Broncos. I feel like Colts definitely would be very much a team that really would regret that. I think so. In my honest opinion, I would believe so. And, you know, I mean, you're looking at John Elway, a guy that led Denver to 5 Super Bowls, 5 of them. And honest to goodness, honestly, like, he really brought Denver football to being this, like, another team that you would love to see win. A winning team, not a loser team. You didn't have the 49ers, you know, you had the 49ers, you had the Steelers. You had another team that could be solidified as a contender. And that's what football is all about, is about trying to get the teams that are already contenders, that have been contenders for so long, trying to get a new team to be a contender. That's what John Elway brought. He brought this, you know, edge, this fire, and he was passionate to win. I think people didn't really respect that until things like the drive in the AFC Championship game against the Browns, you know, that run where he just got plowed by 2 guys and still he went back up and he's like, all right, we're going to win this again. We're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. Honestly, what a warrior. Fantastic guy. Also, on top of that, you're looking at a guy that had 148 victories, started in 231 games, was able to have over 50,000 passing yards, over pretty much 300 passing touchdowns, having 35 fourth quarter comebacks, having 46 game-winning drives, being the man that won 2 straight back-to-back Super Bowls, And no, he didn't do it all by himself, but man, did he show the heart to his other teammates that he wants to win. And that made him really want to win. They all wanted to win because John pushed them, And like I said, 9 Pro Bowls, being a Super Bowl MVP, being an MVP, being named to an all 1990s team. Like, that's fantastic. I really enjoy rooting for this guy, either or in life. And, fantastic guy, so fantastic player. Number 3, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, we're having the 2 Manning brothers in here. He was the first overall pick in 1998 draft, and I don't think Indianapolis at one bit, regrets that decision. Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Not number 1 because of his playoff kind of debacle, but in my honest opinion, he was a smart dude. His IQ was top-notch, a guy that really, he got it done. He really did. He got it done. He was able to understand that. We got to get this victory. We got to do it. He was always a perfectionist. He was, in my honest opinion, I believe in Peyton. I think Peyton was, just look at it. 14 times he's been to the Pro Bowl. 7 times he's been an All-Pro. He's been an MVP 5 times. He's had so many records that maybe might be broken. You never know. I think Drew Brees is definitely very close to breaking the passing yards. But I mean, you're looking at what he did. First of all, winning. They pretty much, this is just in his regular season, 186 games. But overall, he won 200 games because in the playoffs he went 14 for 13. Again, that's not a great number, 14 and 13 record, but more wins than losses, which is pretty good at least. But overall, I mean, you're looking at having a 65 completion percentage, having 71,940 passing yards. That's the most all time. The most passing touchdowns of all time, 539. Having a QBR of 96.5. Having 56 game-winning drives and 45 fourth quarter comebacks. This is just in the regular season. Like, a regular season quarterback, he's the best regular season quarterback of all time. Postseason, that's iffy. But you know what? At least he got 2 things. First of all, he got 2 things. What is the 2 things? 2 rings. That's what counts in the end. Did you win a Super Bowl? Yes, he might struggle, but at least he got a ring. He got 2. 1 with the Colts, 1 with the Broncos. You know what? He didn't leave the Colts. He got traded, of course. Like, they just let him go, of course, right? They wanted Andrew Luck. I understand. But can you imagine if he left for Denver? Honestly, I feel like Indianapolis wouldn't care if he didn't lead him to a Super Bowl victory. I feel like they would, but they wouldn't respect him as much as they did, like they do. Because honestly, he brought winning football to Indianapolis, but he won a title. So I think that puts, like, kind of the nail in the coffin. Like, honestly, you could definitely be hella respected, but unless you didn't win the title for the franchise, I feel like that'd be different, And I think after 2006, everything was different in Indy. I think they really trusted him as a QB. They felt like they could always win every single year. And you know what? They didn't get to win. They just won once with him. But that's okay. He got hit. What he got? A 2nd ring. Walking out a champ. And, one of the best QBs of all time. And, yeah, one of the best draft picks that's number 1 all time. Number 2, Terry Bradshaw. This is a stretch. This is definitely a stretch for me, putting him number 2. I understand. For anyone that disagrees, I totally get it. I really do. I just feel like Terry Bradshaw, I know you guys give credit to Franco. I know you guys love Lynn Swann. I know the Steel Curtain. That entire defense is dominant for the 70s. But you got to give credit to the man, Terry Bradshaw. He really did learn how to be tough under Chuck Noll. Chuck Noll really proved, really brought feistiness, brought fire into his belly. And you know what? Having 4 Super Bowl rings should count for something, in my honest opinion. No, he wasn't the flashiest. No, he wasn't the best QB of all time. No, he wasn't like the best in his league, I would say. But you know what? He got it done. He got it done for this franchise. And no matter what was thrown at him, he was able to really, he was able to play. He was able to play, and his numbers may not seem that great. I'm just thinking of the impact that he's done on this entire organization. The fact that he's started in 158 games, was able to win him 107 out of pretty much, he was 107 and 51. That's not bad. I understand. He had help. Every player will have help, of course. I just think Bradshaw brought something to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was he brought his own flavor. He brought his let's have fun, but let's also win. And you know what? If he didn't win, then of course it would change the story. But he won 4 times. Like that's something that rarely happens. Unless you are Joe Montana, you are Terry Bradshaw, you are Tom Brady. And looking at Bradshaw with 19 fourth quarter comebacks, 27 game-winning drives, and having over 25,000 passing yards should account for something. On top of that, in the playoffs, 4 rings, 74, 75, 78, 79. And, in those games, in the playoffs itself, 14-5, almost 4,000 passing yards, and fourth quarter comebacks and 4 game-winning drives. And, on top of that, like I said, what did he get? Well, he's a Hall of Famer, first of all. He's also an MVP. He's also a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. And he's been named to the All-70s team and the second team. And like I said, All-Pro, Pro Bowl, of course. I really believe that he brought a big impact to this football team. I feel like Pittsburgh, they needed a Terry Bradshaw. They really did need a guy that was a little bit looser than the rest. And in my honest opinion, he is a big reason that they won 4, with the help of Franco and all those guys, yes. But without a Terry, I feel like the culture and the entire team would be a lot different. Number 1, Bruce Smith. You cannot not have Bruce Smith on this list. You need to have this guy on this list. It's Bruce Smith. First of all, the fact that he got 200 career sacks in his entire career, that's got to account for something. That really does, for a 19-year career. Also, changed Buffalo's defense. Also, was a big reason they got to 4 Super Bowls. Honestly, they may have had the K-gun offense. They may have done a fantastic job on that side of the football. But my God, if they didn't have a great defense, they wouldn't have gone anywhere. And you know what? Yes, they didn't win a Super Bowl. So, his impact itself should speak for it. 200 sacks in his career, regular season-wise, is fantastic. His presence already was felt. Like, people really felt his presence. They knew what kind of player he was. You needed to watch out for him. You know what? He disrupted a lot. You're looking at 43 forced fumbles. You're looking at 15 fumble recoveries. You're looking at 200 sacks and pretty much over 1,000 tackles. 2 safeties, His entire career of being in the playoffs from 88 to 99, having 14.5 career sacks. 11-time Pro Bowler, 8-time first-team All-Pro, being a Defensive Player of the Year twice, being called the All-1990s and the 1980s. In my honest opinion, yeah, he deserves to be on this list. He impacted this football team forever. Ever since he came with the first overall pick in 1985 NFL Draft, that's what he's been doing. Has been wrecking QBs, putting pressure on offenses, and really giving this Bills team this high fly and just great spirit. And I think, yes, he deserves to be the top number 1, because out of all these guys, I feel like Bruce Smith definitely impacted the most. Even without a ring, Bruce Smith has done a lot for this franchise that went from losers. O.J. Simpson definitely rose him a little bit, but then they needed something else, and they got a spark. They really got a spark with Bruce Smith.